Hello, and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us their stories about their lives and events. And today's guest is Rebecca Lisi. She is the Deputy Town Manager of East Longmeadow. And we also, in our audience, we have Jeff Teeden here today, along with your host, Mary Genowan Kaplan. Mary?
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for agreeing to speak on our podcast today. Rebecca has been our Deputy Town Manager for 3 weeks now. And we really are so excited about this opportunity to learn a little bit more about you and how you found your way to work in East Longmeadow. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. So I started in November. So I'm rounding out my first 3 months.
3 months, okay.
Yeah. And it has been an interesting, course of events that landed me here. I'm from New York originally, and I ran for Holyoke City Council for a ward seat after living in Holyoke for 9 months. In 2005.
Jumped right in.
I just jumped right in. There was an open seat, so it seemed to be an ideal moment to sort of get involved. And I'm very interested in civic engagement and civic volunteerism. And so I jumped into Holyoke politics. I lost my first race, but I was talking about issues such as smart growth and downtown redevelopment. And so when I ran citywide in 2007, that message seemed to resonate with a larger, swath of the population. And so I was catapulted into an at-large seat, and I remained in that seat for 14 years.
Congratulations. Wow. Good work.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And I really think that my presence on the council was a big change for Holyoke. And what happened there was I'm not from Holyoke originally, and I think you might know that Holyoke politics can be a little bit insular or parochial. And so I sort of broke in, and a lot of new faces started showing up in local government alongside of me. It was a really exciting moment. And with this idea of downtown revitalization, it really started to diversify who was participating in city government. And we did a lot of work to create a culture of civic volunteerism in the community. So that's all to say, I think that I did a lot to create a policy agenda for Holyoke that several mayors had enacted. And then when Alex Morse vacated his seat and ran for Congress, I decided to run for mayor.
Why not?
Why not? I had put in the time. And again, I felt that the policies that I was successful enacting laid a groundwork for even more change. There were 7 candidates going after that mayoral seat, and I lost in the preliminary by 100 votes. Yeah. So I took a big step back from politics. I finished out my term, and then I took 2 years where I was sort of just reconfiguring things. I worked for a little bit for a diversity, equity, and inclusion startup. And I was on the job market in sort of a soft manner because I really wasn't ready to jump in. I'll also mention I'm a juggler. So if it wasn't enough to be involved in local government in its elected capacity for 14 years, I also have a family. And I was also completing my doctorate.
Why not?
Right not?
Why not? There are 24 hours in the day, Rebecca. Yeah. Plenty of time. Yes.
So you can imagine. So I wrapped up the doctorate program in September of 21. A couple of weeks later, I lost the mayoralty. So I needed a big break to sort of recalibrate.
Tell us a little bit about your doctorate, though. What did you take on this major effort to study and learn about?
Right. So thank you for asking that, Mary. Not many people go there. So I started the graduate program because I was involved in community, and I felt like there was a lot of information in the ivory tower that the community could benefit from if there was more of an exchange of ideas. And so I went in thinking that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of reform the way that government access community information, and then vice versa. The way
And what
that
ivory tower were you in? What school?
I was at UMass.
Nice. Okay. Amherst?
UMass Amherst. I was in their political science program. I am an Americanist who studies race and American politics, as well as public policy, campaigns and elections.
Yeah, that's no small task. Okay.
Yes, especially, the way I think things had changed from the time that I entered the program and the time that I left. Politics has really become more polarized, and so it was not easy to be involved in politics, and then also sort of studying politics at the same time. There were a lot of big questions that I think I struggled with personally in terms of what the purpose of government is. But nonetheless, one of the things that came out of this intersection of academia and then also being involved in government or politics was, as I mentioned, I'm very committed to an idea of civic volunteerism. And so I started a group called CRUSH. It stood for Citizens for the Revitalization and Urban Success of Holyoke. Our logo had a pair of lips on it, like we had a crush on Holyoke.
Cute. Okay.
And we would host parties with a purpose, where we would talk about things like gentrification, or the library was going through a renovation. Some people wanted to tear down our historic library. And through this process of civic engagement, we had panel discussions, and we were able to shift that project so that it became more of a we preserved part of the historic library, but then also built a new piece. And so it was like a green rebuild, and it preserved some of the historic architecture as opposed to just raising the whole thing and building all new. And so I think a lot of people got excited about the idea that we could talk about these issues, we could think about these issues, we could have an exchange of ideas, and then impact the outcome. So I think that's really what I got out of the time where I was 1 foot in the academy and 1 foot in electoral politics. And it really built a constituency or a network of people who wanted to get involved. And we saw a lot of changes in Holyoke over the 14, 15 years where I was present, along with a lot of other folks that all of a sudden saw that they could make a difference if they were just getting involved.
Great. So, fast forward.
Yes.
You're not the mayor.
No.
But you're a mom.
I'm a mom.
And you're a doctor. We should
Yes,
refer
thank you.
to you as Dr. Lisi. And then what?
Right. So this is the long and winding path. As I mentioned, I needed some downtime, and I was working for a diversity, equity, and inclusion startup, sort of soft on the job market, because I wasn't willing to just jump into any old thing. I really wanted to ensure that my values and my training were, aligned with what I was doing for work. And not only aligned with what I was doing for work, but that the people around me could see the value that I was bringing to the table. Because I think that sometimes, especially when you're in a political position, you're often sort of, you're not going to make everyone happy, so you can be criticized. And I wasn't in the mood to do that anymore.
Okay.
So the form of government that you have here in East Longmeadow allows for a high degree of professionalization in city government, town government. And I really like the idea that I could bring a lot of the ideas that I've been working on. And in fact, if you go to my mayoral campaign website, you'll see that a lot of the issues that I was talking about we're actually enacting here in East Longmeadow. Some that come to my mind easily are the town is very excited to move forward on a fiber network. that was one of the big issues that I campaigned for. There is some conversation around creating a capital stabilization fund. I think for many years, it seems that there was a focus on sort of tightening the budget, and we're in a very good fiscal position due to that work. But one of the consequences has been a lack of investment in our buildings and infrastructure in town. And so now we're at a moment where we could create a stabilization fund that holds money aside for this sort of investment in buildings, roads, and other capital expenses.
Warms my heart when you say roads. That's great.
Right. And then, I think that there is some appetite. I know that there's been some dips in the water in terms of creating a mixed-use district here in the center of town. And as I mentioned when we first started the conversation here, mixed use downtown revitalization is something that I feel very well versed in, very passionate about, because I would like to make sure that my son, I'm always thinking about the future in that way, has a world that looks like ours to some extent in terms of climate resiliency, in terms of having social interactions with neighbors and just being able to walk around a community and know the people that you're bumping into. And I think that a walkable, livable, compact area where you can shop and eat and play it is an important part of any community that I would want to be a part of. So I think that there's an appetite to see some of that come to fruition here.
How old is your son?
He's 10. Thanks for asking.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
Great
he's a ball
age.
of fire.
He's hit the double digits. Oh.
Yes.
So you've been here 3 months. How do you entertain yourself during the day? What have you been involved in?
So on the 5th day of my employment, our planning director left. And shortly after the planning director left, the administrative assistant to the planning department left. So that office was vacated, and that became my baby.
And that's a very important office,
It is.
especially in the plans that you've outlined.
Right. It's a big and important office for any community, especially a community that has the ambitions that East Longmeadow has. It's vital. And there were a number of grants that were sort of in process that needed to be wrapped up. In some ways, it was lucky that I come with the knowledge and background that I do on planning. I was chair of the ordinance committee for most of the time in Holyoke, and we worked very closely with the planning board. And I, of course, as chair of the ordinance committee, worked very closely with the planning department on zoning and land use issues. So in some ways, there's some fortune in the fact that I landed in this position and could cover that department
Because
really
it's
well.
complicated. It's not cookie cutter or easy.
No, and you're managing 3 boards and providing technical support for the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. So that requires a lot of understanding of open meeting law, getting agendas out on time, noticing the public about these meetings, making sure that they have an agenda that they can move through in a timely manner. So there's a lot of technical components to supporting these boards and managing these boards. And a lot of really important decisions for the community gets made through those boards and then through the land use decisions that they make. So that was one big baby that I took on. So managing the planning department and then also working to hire talent in that department.
Right? Just you would like to set that on its way with a full-time planning director.
Yes, exactly. And so we've been lucky enough to find an administrative assistant who has a lot of experience with Zoning Board of Appeals and conservation. So that individual, Alex Grigorov, has hit the ground running, we're happy to say. He's been here for about a month now. And while it took a little while to sort of learn where the files were, he understood the process and was able to really support the boards very, very quickly. So very happy about that. We have been struggling to find a planning director that has the breadth of skill sets that we're looking for. So we have been revamping the job description a little bit, and we're going to be reposting that next week. So hopefully that'll draw in some new candidates. And grants management has also become another project that we're calling it a portfolio. Because when Tom was the deputy town manager, he was, as far as I understand.
Tom Christensen, our current town manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when he was in the deputy position, I understand that he was doing a lot of sharing responsibilities with Mary McNally and working to understand the position and then have the baton passed to him in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And now that he's the town manager and I'm the deputy, I think we want to think a little bit more strategically about how to share the work so that we're not just
shadowing each other.
Thank you.
You can
Yes.
do your stuff, he can do his stuff, and you can communicate and collaborate as needed.
Yes, a high level of collaboration is what we're envisioning. And so I think planning, community economic development are becoming part of my portfolio. Grants management, just because I started picking up where the planning director had left off, and then I've been charged with sort of pulling together some other grants. I do have experience pulling in some grants in the past, so I'm not afraid. And so far, all the grants that we have applied for and heard back from, we're in good shape. We're batting 100.
Good news for East Long Meadow.
Yes, thank you. And we're about to enter the budget process, and I'm particularly excited about this because
Really?
yes.
Good.
So I guess the nerd in me is coming out, right?
You enjoy the fray. This is good because it's a lot coming at
Yeah.
any town manager and deputy.
Yeah, finances are, I think, tight across the country because of the way that inflation is affecting folks. And I'm especially interested in the budget process just because I have met all the department heads at this point in time. I have a general understanding of what
Rebecca,
they do.
Would you say how many? Because folks might be surprised in our little town. How many?
So we have 18 department heads.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say little town. Should I say mid-sized town?
You're actually a city these days. So you are the
Good to
city
know.
of the town of East Long Meadow.
Meadow.
And that's how you were able to qualify for the charter form of government that you have today.
Oh,
Good
you have
to know.
you have enough of a population where you qualify as a city. But I think everybody likes to ignore the the city part, and you're the city of the town. It was retained in the name as you made this transition.
17,000 people. We're a city, right? That's
I think
about
it's
what
even
we are?
more than that these days.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so 18 department heads, and I've met everybody. I feel like I've worked with everybody in some capacity, but to really get into the budget is where we start understanding the policies and the programs and how they think about what they're doing in the town. And I really enjoy collaboration. So I'm really interested in being a thought partner for our department heads and not only understanding what they're doing, but also seeing if there's ways that we can find synergies across departments or leverage other, intermunicipal agreements and create, partnerships with neighboring towns to bring in some of the either talent or resources that we need. So it's a high level of collaboration and problem solving that I'm interested in.
Which is so important when we're talking about maximizing limited resources. So Good for you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks.
I'm still reeling about 18 departments. That's okay.
Yeah, right.
Wonderful.
Surprising.
So what do you see in our town? What from new eyes,
Yeah.
coming from all the way up 91, and down to us here?
Yeah, I mean, what is really nice about Town Hall, first and foremost, because that's where I'm spending most of my days, is that there's a really beautiful team dynamic. Like, I think everybody actually gets along with one another. And that is not the dynamic that I was coming from. Maybe it's just because I was on the political end of things as opposed to the governance or government part of it all. But the team dynamic is really beautiful. I would actually credit your town manager, Tom Christensen, with helping to cultivate that. And I don't have a sense of how much Mary played a part in that, but I can't imagine that in the short time that Tom's been here that he's done that single-handedly. So I think that you have really smart, talented people in Town Hall. They're doing really good work. They're interested in working with one another, and they're just kind, which is just a pleasure to come to work every day into that environment. And then a lot of my lunches have been just meeting people that are in the community. It seems that there is a growing business community, and our business community is serviced by ERC 5, East of the River Council.
The chamber, yeah.
Yeah, the Chamber of
Yep.
Commerce.
Grace Barone
Barone.
and her band of merry businesses. She's done a great job of pulling them together and keeping people motivated.
Yes, absolutely. And she just organized a really wonderful legislative breakfast this past Wednesday. But at the end of the day, I don't think that East Long Meadow, as a town, has a really good sense of who's out there. Probably the biggest businesses we understand, and they're involved in different efforts and endeavors that the town has pulled together. But the little ones, the little mom and pop shops, I think are a little bit more opaque to the town at this point in time. So one of the things that I'd like to do is organize a business roundtable. I don't think you can service this community unless you know who they are. So I'd like to pull together, just a small event where we're like, who's at the table here? Who's doing business in East Long Meadow? What's been great about doing business here? What are the challenges? And how can we, utilize our government contacts to help these businesses overcome? So whether it's with the banks or with state and federal levels of government, how can we help local businesses overcome some of their challenges? Or again, get creative about synergies or different ways of bringing resources or highlighting what is already here. And then, is there anything else in terms? You have you're also coming from up the 91. You're a much more suburban community than Holyoke, and Holyoke has many suburban communities with many different identities. And I'm starting to understand there are some different identities within the neighborhoods here in East Long Meadow. And so that's always a fun process to sort of get a little bit more granular about what distinct neighborhoods think about themselves and what their priorities are. But I'm really excited about that center town district. And we'll be pulling together a year-long planning process with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission very shortly. We'll have a citizen steering committee to lead that process, and they'll be the ones that are charged with engaging the broader community to get feedback. And, it's sort of an opportunity to dream. And at the end of the day, I think that's one of the things that I get most excited about in terms of government and citizen participation. It's a creative endeavor. Like if we're in a democracy and we think very seriously about being self-governed, it is also a creative process, and it's a task of What do you want to see? What do you want to be? And I think that we have to dream, and we have to, just create space to get creative and dream about what would we like the future to be, and how can we take some steps towards that future today.
That is exactly the right point.
Right.
To hold this down. How do we
Right.
get
Start
to the next
big and then
step?
narrow it down.
Because if you don't know where you're going, you probably won't get
Yeah.
there. Rebecca, it has been such a delight having you here with us today. We're going to wrap up right now, but you have any parting words, or you've been doing a lot of talking. I hate to shift you into the mode, but we don't want to miss anything that you want to share.
I think at the end of the day, I really am excited about the visioning process that I see the town has already started to undertake. I think starting with the charter reform, you're already starting to think about how to do things differently and how to utilize the tool of government to realize your dreams and visions for the future. And so I just hope that whoever I'm reaching with this podcast feels like they can too come to the table, dream with us and play with us and think about what you would like to see, and then show up to help make it happen.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
So how can people get a hold of you, Rebecca, if they'd like to talk more about this?
Sure. The easiest way, I think, would be email, which is very simple. It's just townmanager@eastlongmeadowma.gov, and that hits both myself and the town manager, Tom Christensen. If you want a direct line, the phone number in Town Hall is 413-525-5400, and that will bring you to the switchboard, and you could just ask for me. We have a lot of boards and commissions that we're always looking for volunteers, so there are ways for people to start, small, but come out and meet your neighbors and get involved, please.
All right. Well, thank you. That wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. And we'd like to thank our guest, Deputy Town Manager Rebecca Lisi, for being here today. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 0102A channel on YouTube and on Spotify. If you have a story you'd like to share on the program, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Aaron Kobler by stopping by the Pleasant View Senior Center or by calling Aaron at 413-525-5436, extension 1401. Or you can send Aaron an email, aaron.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the View.